Hi Yogi, welcome to Yoga with Alina, and today we have another tutorial. We're going to talk about open versus closed hips. The reason why I love doing this tutorial, and I've had it in my first yoga channel on YouTube, and I think it was one of the first tutorials I ever did, is because for probably the first 2, maybe 3 years of my practice, I had no idea what the hell that meant. And all the teachers would always say, open your hips or close your hips, and I had zero clue as to what is happening and how are those different. I mean, I obviously knew that there are certain poses that were called hip openers and certain poses that were just not called hip openers, but how are they different? How do you actually see if the hips are open or closed, and what does that even mean? So I love doing this tutorial. I hope you will enjoy it as well, because this is where I explain to you what that actually means. Let's head over to the mat. And I'm back here with Tank. He's going to show us today what it means to have open hips and closed hips for different poses. But before we start showing you poses, just a couple of things I want to explain about that whole concept of open and closed hips. First of all, it's not about flexibility. It's about hip mobility. It's about rotation of a joint. It's actually a great thing. And healthy hip should be able to be both open and closed. If you have super open hips that are not able to close, right? It's not a good thing. It's not a healthy hip. That actually happens. It happens more often than we would think about it. Same vice versa. So it's more about mobility of your hip joint, and it's more about the health of your body, not about flexibility. Because when we talk about flexibility, we talk about all these muscles that are connected, that are around your hip joint. And that's different. There are glutes, there are inner thighs, there are outer thighs. There's so many things happening. It's quads, it's hamstrings. All that is all those stretches, right, that target those muscles. In one way or another, we consider them to be somehow affecting hips, right? But the hips itself, it's a joint. It's a ball and socket joint that is rotating. So open and closed is basically a rotation of that joint. Think about a door, right? Open, closed. Same thing with your hips. But here's the trick. When we're standing, I was about to say when we're closed, but even when we're not closed, we cannot really see our hip joint. At least hopefully we cannot. And this becomes really tricky to understand when it's open and when it's closed. So here's a little trick for you. We're going to look at the toes. We're going to look at where the toes are pointing for us to understand if the hips are open or if the hips are closed. When your toes on both legs are pointing the same direction, this is when your hips are closed. When your toes are pointing different direction, and keep in mind, it can be a tiny little thing, right? It doesn't have to be very dramatic. That's when you're starting to open up your hips. And the further the toes are apart from one another, right, the more open the hips are at that given point. So let's go into Tadasana. Let's just stand up and show those hips. Good. No, you're going to have to face that. Good. So right now his toes are pointing straight to you guys, and his hips are completely closed. And this is just the basic neutral pose in the yoga practice, right? Okay, now let's open these hips. How do you open the hips? Yay, there you go. That's it. This is how we open the hips. Bring those toes back in, and then step the feet out, coming into your wide stand. Good. So guess what? This is still his hips being closed. It's not open hips. It's a wide-legged position, but the hips are not open. The hips are actually closed here. But from here, if we decide to go into goddess pose, let's go into goddess pose. There you go. This is when you're opening your hips. Wow, this is a deep hip opener. I cannot go that deep into this goddess pose. I'm not joking. Not my favorite pose. If you've practiced with me before, you know that. But it's very effective. It's really good, especially for the hip joints. Good. Let it go. Get out of it. Good. And let's go into downward facing dog, because this is, I feel, one of the most common things that we're asked to do. When we're in the downward facing dog and we're asked to lift one of the legs, and the teacher usually says, open or closed hips. Now for me, that was always the question, what the hell is happening there? Let me go to the other side. And you're going to lift the left leg. And you're going to lift right now and keep the hip closed. Good. Flex your foot. It's going to be much easier to see that way. There you go. So his toes right now, I know they're separated quite a lot, right? But they're still facing the same direction. So if you start lowering the foot down, right, they're going to come right back where they were. The toes are facing the same direction. The hip is closed. Lift it back up. Good. The hip is still closed. And it's not about how high the leg goes, because for a lot of people, the leg doesn't go that high when the hip is closed. But it's not really about that. Now we're going to open it up. Open. There you go. And the leg can go much higher now. That just happens naturally, really. But it's not the indicator of the hip being open that the leg is high up. The indicator for us right now is that foot and the toes that are facing you right now, guys, that are facing the side of the room. Because if you start lowering the leg down, keep the toes out. Good. If you start lowering down, this is where you see that the toes are out, right? They're not facing the same direction anymore. They are facing different directions. Good. You can let go of all that craziness. And let's go into lunge. I want to show on the example of the lunge right now. Good. And just nice, long, high lunge. Beautiful job. So same thing is happening here, guys. If you can see, yes, legs are being super separated right now, but the toes are facing forward. All 10 toes are facing the same direction. This indicates the hips are closed. And we normally want to have closed hips in lunge pose. A lot of people do start opening up because it's just a little bit more comfortable, but this is the idea. You want your hips to be square to the front. Good. And then from here, I want you to get into your warrior one. There you go. Good. So technically, very similar pose, right? And not a lot of people understand the actual difference. It's not just about that heel dropping down. It's actually about the hips kind of opening up. Here's the trick. Idea of this pose is actually to square off the hips. But guess what? Now you know that it is literally physically impossible. Your toes are facing different directions. Your hips are open. This is it. Yes, you're working on squaring off your hips, but it's never going to be 100%. And there's a whole debate going on about this pose in general, because once you open up your hip, then you're trying to close it. What happens? Your knee joint is rotating quite a lot. So if you feel any pressure in the knee when you're doing your warrior one, this is the indicator that it's better to go back into lunge, close your hips, and just stay there. So again, if you have any knee problem, reconsider doing your warrior one. Yeah, you can let go of the full pose. It's okay. Good. You can reconsider doing the knee thing, right? You can reconsider doing the heel thing and just go into your regular lunge pose. Good. Let's do one more pose before we wrap this up. We're going to do warrior three. Let's do it. And again, you're going to do the left leg. Good. Get into it however you want here. Yep, the different leg. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I meant the lifted leg would be the left. That was a lot of stumbling upon the words for me. Good. You can do any arm variation, really, whichever arm variation you want. Right now, hands at the heart center in prayer, doesn't matter. What we do want to see is those hips, right? So again, he's actively bringing the toes to face the floor right now. And why is that? Lower the foot down to meet the other. Yes, there you go. And then lift it back up. I just love how it looks. Thank you so much. Good. And the hips are closed. The hips are parallel to the ground. Now let's get from this straight into your half moon. You can open up the arms. You can use the support of the floor. Totally cool with me. What happens here, we're opening the hip. It is a very similar pose, right? It's still your arm balance, not arm balance, it's still your balance, right? But we're opening the hip. Those left toes for him right now are facing out. Good, and keep the shape. Same thing, just lower the leg down. Good. And we're going to be able to see that the toes are facing a different direction, and then lift them back up. I love torturing you. That is amazing. Good. I feel so much power. I'm drunk on power right now. Good. The hips are still open. Let it all go. Let's just sit down and chat and close this crazy thing. That was beautiful. Thank you so much. All right, guys. So hopefully this was very informative for you, because again, I have spent the first couple of years of my practice not understanding what the hell was happening. I thought that open and closed hips and downward facing dog means whether the leg is higher up or lower down. So I would actively keep it lower for the closed and lift it a little bit higher for the open. No one had told me about this thing. But now you know, and my hope is that you will use it the next time you practice on the mat. Thank you so much for staying with us for this tutorial, and from us to you, namaste.